But I got into the poetry dodge when I became a writer, thinking that novels were too much work and I'd never do anything long. I could get it all on one page and be done with the damn thing. But I challenged myself, and I've got one here. Instead of my usual lyric attempts, this is a narrative poem. It's not hung together with an iambic pentameter as narrative poems are supposed to be. I like more the old Anglo-Saxon alliteration and the sound of words. So I use rhyme very much to tie lines together that have no business being in the same place. And the other thing is, I'm fascinated with time and how much can happen in an instant. I like to freeze time and think about what could happen in that moment before the movie projector starts again or something. And that, excuse me, please. That leads me in some strange places. This is probably one of those, because it is titled, and you may recognize the the person referenced in the title. Have you seen work, paintings, illustrations by M.C. Escher? The staircases that go and become going up all of a sudden. This is called M.C. Escher Closes the Blinds. It is time now, for it is night, to close the slatted blinds against tomorrow morning's light and set the house to rest, lest dogs or cat awake too soon and stir us all from sleep when things get bright and sun rays creep. The windows near the door, a row of 3, present a choice to close sequentially or reach the wands of the outside two and stand arms wide in turn and turn them both together against the night. I reach and see against the outside darkness on the glass of the middle window a reflection there of me with arms outspread and akimbo, wands twirling rhythmically, intent to be precise, lest I close one blind too soon, unevenly. It's a balancing act, I think, like how on old TV acrobats from China used to spin upon long wands, a group of plates, one at each wand's end, and then would twist and twist and twist the wands to send a force of balance up the pole to make its porcelain rider spin, not fall and break, and bring the family shame, remove the family name at last from a long roll of past performers, once at emperors' courts, bejeweled and favored, and all the ancestors' labor, not cut short, to lose it all before a broadcast crowd retunes to tune the evening news. All this in mind in an instant, while I wind the blinds to shut, and then I think that family's heir, performing there his ancient act, had off stage shared attraction with a pretty girl who now beside him stands, her plates awhirl, her diamond eyes that look above past the spinning poles are holes in which he poured his love. In Shanghai, ascendant city, where he brought her in the act against his father's wish, and she became a dish he balanced on his soul, his love for her, his sustaining pole. But filial piety, the gravity that threatened, whether wand and dish and family act, and soul and family love, and all he knew of universe, stayed whole or cracked. Yet attraction, then romance, then lust, then love-wrought passion, followed each on each, and spun the pole his will had fashioned, atop of which life's priceless plate, rimmed in gold, spun past control in circles, turning higher, wrought in a kiln of family bricks and desire's fire, turning while its sparkling reflection swirled and spun and shone above each jaded crowd in turn, wrapped in magic, that they'd see this act of acrobats spin, that drew them in, wide-eyed, to the swirling air around the stage, the whirling mystery, stopping time so. But one issue held them all, with the plates, the wands, the spin, the twirling in the room, encircling all, maintain the thrall in which they sat or fall. The girl's addition to the act, in fact, increased the group's appeal. Her beauty drew a following just her own. The crowds increased, the act's renown grew too. The father called it just a draw of something new and offstage kept apart. Yet followers knew not novelty, but art itself had spun, had soared within their view in something new, the heart of which existed too, sight unseen before their eyes on stage, before them all, between that young man's passion and that young girl's skill which they'd watched grow, by leaps it seemed, from show to show. He taught techniques the beauty learned so fast, he'd forgotten that her past, before the marketplace where their eyes met, remained a blank. One conversation there, a blush, a stare, a comment she was on her own, no family left to ask if she might go or stay, to say that she must stay alone or she might leave, and if she did, no one to grieve, and nothing to disown that wasn't hers already. He saw, as she picked through the market's wares, a simple twist, a movement to each wrist, might spin a wand that spun a plate. To walk away was now too late, and in the porcelain firmness and fineness of her wrists, his heart was captured by their twists. No time to turn away. It was, of course, too late. His art and heart and life were fixed upon a plate of love, mounted, spinning, with a gentle twist by fate. And so her prowess grew apace from nothing to surpassing skill and captivating grace. She reckoned what he taught her and went beyond it still. The family's fortunes soared. The crowds paid more and more, staying later and later. The wands rose higher. Each shining plate spun faster. Their reflections in the air became a blur and a whirl that bound the audience to the act, the family to the pair, and those looked up, their spinning plates excelling there, a gesture off from launching into the air. Their sold-out schedule of performance wore the family thin, an endless cycle of crowds and din, of wand, plate, spin. The father ruled, we'll let our fame one evening hold our audience's focus solely on our name, and we will rest, lest one plate fall because we wait too late and lose it all. And so they did. They set aside one evening for themselves, and after dark, instead of to the stage, went to a park where lanterns glow soft light upon a lake. And families there to take their leisure slowly stroll in shadows, each apart, engaged in conversation there, or still, while redolent of flowers, the night air fills their lungs and calms their minds, and thus renews their powers. The father walked in stately grace and set a pace his sons agreed they found too slow. The stern formalities of practice and performance put aside, they started in jest to deride his progress, slowed by age. He chose to take up with their banter, reminding them he yet to break a plate, could outspin all except the girl. In truth, they'd be glad to have his blood flow in their veins when they had lost their youth. The women clustered to themselves and followed slowly after around the mother, their talk, their murmurs, out of hearing, their laughter, more pronounced, hung in the warm evening air, dim petals of sound, free from any care, afloat in the dark of that great park, nothing but contentment there. At times with stealth the lad would turn his glance behind in covert search for pleasure drawn from star glow on her face, and slow his pace to stare. His brothers would have none of this. They saw him searching there and teased him back to them, to laugh with jokes at his expense. The evening's darkness grew immense, and time stood still. That ever in this park his name be known, an ancient ruler set a gate, magnificent, in stone, stacked in immensity, and where it towers up on high, the eye still draws at night above fixed torches' reach, above the battlements in din and dim reflecting eaves, into the dark and star-rich sky. The scale of this, appearing from behind the trees to strollers in the park, awes and draws them out onto a paved and open space around, This family, too, their eyes tracing upward, move into this void, and scanning to see the sparkling sky, each moves a little from the other's reach. Their orbits breach. Their ordered groupings break a little, the attention shifting from themselves to the largeness and lightness and brightness of this thing, wrapped in the play of light and darkness that it centers. There's much to absorb, and moments pass. Catching himself at last, the young man turns to search his loved one's face for gold reflections of the light rebounding from the wall. But where he thought to see her finds a space. Concerned, then struck to find she's not grouped with the clan, he scans the trails, the bush, the square's expanse of dim-lit scattered groups and singing single folk whose shadows cast to him across the pavement varied symbols. He thinks he sees her here or there, but none turn out to be. He shouts her name to his brothers to explain, and then sets out where in the shadows inside the gate he thinks he sees her dress reflect the light, then disappear into the night. What and why and where she's gone toss like leaves and storms inside his head, and he passes also through the gate's thick walls, and darkness grasps him tightly. Awful, dread steps out with measured hurry, too. It was just a glimpse of dress, and now the stress attendant on her loss, if he's too late, clasps tight across his chest. He clears the gate. 3 thoroughfares branch into streets outward from the park. No one stirs towards, no one moves away. There's no one to be seen. There is nothing else astir, but dark and fearful for her, fearful of deceit, fearful for his loss. Emotions crash inside him. But one dim view of patterned cloth he knows, retakes his thought. It's from the bolt he brought and brought her where in a market square his heart first sought her. He's gained a bit, but sees where she is gone, and with a swallow of relief, he speeds his steps to follow. The street's deep shadows turn to black and punctuate themselves with glows that throw weak visions to the ground from vignette windows with holes. Yes, there she goes. And here he follows, still behind, amazed and curious at her surreptitious act, in fact, expecting to discern just how she had learned his trade, his art, because he will not let his heart conceive that she might leave his world to dabble in another's world, to kindle their strange fires that banked could warm another man's desires to flame, to have it all the same, a stranger, her, himself, her. Instead, his heart insists each moment will unfold at last a fact, explain this act of secret purpose, reveal how she could learn his skill so well, so quickly, so excel in plate spinning on pole, as if perhaps she'd sold her soul, like stories tell, to gain renown and gold and higher glories. That must be this, a visit to a necromancer, a weaver of strange arts that in exchange for innocence in hearts give gifts that far exceed the parts of stranger beings, to give wings that let them soar above their possibilities, to do what otherwise they cannot do, but all that they might please. This concept drapes his mind and chills his love as much as could the other choice, that she is off to harmonize a lover's voice and will betray. At this moment, from the street, her feet ascend stone steps where there's a door. A pause before she softly raps, and then she quickly disappears within. From shadows there across the tree-dark street, discreet, distracted, disturbed, he sees dim light within 3 windows, in a row, beside a door. And in the center one, a man appears in silhouette, facing out, his arms upreached in a stance familiar. Holding upward in each fist a wand, a thin and reedy line uplifted that shadowed on the blinds he twists with motions so familiar the lover aches to see them turn. So this is where she learned. So this man is another in her life. So this man shares her, the one he hoped would be his wife. Somewhere, a spinning plate wavers on a wand. somewhere away from here, but imminent. It teeters from its flat revolving plane. Its orbit tilts, and where the wand in contact with its underside is fit, it happens that the opposite edge descends. At first a little bit, no danger. Then scant more. But concentration still in spinner's skill can bring it back to balance. All this plate and all the spinning world and all the revolving universe this young man centers and his heart hubs. A frozen moment. Silence. Barely then the trailing edge descends below the pole's firm tip. A tilt accelerates unevenly. There is no place for pole to fast grip the plate. And motion turns to wobble, and then the contact of fixed pole and spinning plate breaks off. The shining dish in slow, exquisite motion arcs and launch and flies wandless, free, or seeming free, but beautifully certain in its infinite descent, its slow descent from high to even to low, as gravity commands it, so this twirling plate must go. There is no audience to watch this fall. In fact, there is no true and solid spinning plate at all, but still its arc and lovers' worlds collide, in fact, in shards, disintegrate, splinter, and cease at once to hold the fall, and then, in fact, cease to still exist at all. In secret, to protect his family and his love, the young man hides a gun. His spin undone, he brings it now from close to hand and points it at that man, that middle window frame where silhouette still slowly turns two wands. He takes his rival in, he takes his aim, and then the lover's hands that shining, spinning, dizzying art had wrought, distraught, brings forth from metal flame. And mortal force goes flying with its blame unerringly toward the window's plate in plane. I've closed the blinds and reach now to the wand that's in the middle, too. There's only this to do, and then I'll climb the stairs and go to bed. But in my head, a flicker on the window's glass fast holds my eye. The blind slats meet, but in that instant exists that sparkle, maybe light, reflected from the moon or from a wild eye, a seeming specter of a seeming flash. I close the blind and turn away, aware of something yet unformed, ungrasped. How every night I take this stance, this balanced pose, these two wands clasped, drawn to these same windows first, and do this almost ritual dance again and again and again and again. This is how I die. This is how it's always been. The earth still turns upon its pole. The galaxies still spin.